Hello. During today's episode, I get to chat with Leroy Brown from Opportunity Hub in New Orleans. This is such a fun conversation. We talk about how community is a superpower, how building an ecosystem can drive value. He explains on how they bring in people and culture into the everyday activities of their ecosystem, of their hub. We also talk about how they are transforming glass bottles into sand and then artwork. And we also even touch on football, given that this Super Bowl Sunday is coming up. So this is a very fun conversation full of insightful information. So let's just get started. Hello and welcome to Roots of Sustainable Impact. I'm your host, Eloisa Marquez Gonzalez. And today I am very excited to have my guest, Leroy Brown, with me here in the episode, in the show. And welcome, Leroy.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
It's wonderful to have you here. And today we're going to be discussing how collaboration and community can be a superpower and how building that ecosystem like you have in New Orleans can bring value. So before we dive into the topics, could you please give my listeners a background of who are you and what type of impact are you trying to live in this world?
Yeah, man. So my name is Leroy Brown. I'm with OHUB, which is short for Opportunity Hub. And we were given the task of finding Black and Brown founders, underserved founders also here in our New Orleans community. And I think as we started, doing this process, it's been beautiful. We've probably incubated over 100 plus businesses, ideas from ideation to startup. We funded about seven projects now, up to about $500,000. And so for us, it was more of an opportunity to kind of give the local entrepreneurs a space to bring their ideas, their concepts, and kind of nurture them, flesh them out, and then have them go through pitch competitions. Now, what we learned from that process is that, how to build an ecosystem.
Beautiful. And what is there anything specific that shaped your values, your thinking of about building an ecosystem, building this type of community? Where did it start for you?
So what's interesting, if you just think about the word ecosystem, that's a tough call for a lot of people. So down here, the closest thing we have to that is community. And community is super strong. Like I'm talking literally everybody comes together for all kinds of events. So obviously Super Bowl is here now. So we're going to have a lot of Super Bowl parties, friends getting together with friends. Mardi Gras is coming up, friends getting together with friends. Jazz Fest, friends getting together with friends. Essence, friends getting together with friends. So we have every other month we have events where we were doing that anyway. And so what I did was to kind of lean into the blueprint of the community that we already had. But I wanted our tech, our VCs, all those other folks to kind of understand, like, this is kind of how we operate. I bring what I have to the table, you bring what you have to the table, and let's make it work. So that's kind of what we did. We actually were able to build this ecosystem on love and love for our culture, love for our state, and just who we are as people in South Louisiana. So it's pretty cool.
That is amazing. And I would like to understand a little bit more on how you're infusing that on the day to day. And as an example, I was listening to your podcast and I love the intro music. It is so New Orleans. I have a smile on my face. I loved it. So it really represented your community.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how else do you infuse that culture, that your people into the ecosystem when we many times we think it's business. Let's just like be hard and serious and
Yeah,
do
yeah,
business. So,
and do business, right? So if I'm going to trust the community as the blueprint, then I have to really understand my community. There is culture, there's artists, there are storytellers, there are musicians, right? And so being able to first honor the culture, as you see when you get to our intro, as you come into the podcast, we honor it through the music, but then also being able to bring artists together with founders and innovators and see if they can come up with creations on their own. Um, um, Being super inclusive through events like climate culture and giving folks the opportunity to, the artist comes in, we may have painters, we got sketchers, we got expressions, we have storytellers, spoken word, but we mix them with the guys who are working on climate resilience and who may have technology or solar concepts around new energy. And so what we're learning is the more these guys collaborate, the more the message around climate resilience gets out. And it takes on a different meaning. So now it's not so techie for the art community. And then the art community is helping the tech world get a feel for it through the storytelling.
that is beautiful. So you
Mhm.
are helping do that bridge. You're using
Yes,
your culture and your people to build that bridge and bring that buy-in from that community. It's
absolutely, absolutely. And by putting those two groups together, man, think about it. Those are your creators.
Mhm.
My founders are creators. My innovators, my inventors, all creators. My artist, a creator. My musician, a creator. So we're leaning into the energy of creativity when we start putting that stuff together.
that yeah, that's beautiful. And has
Yeah.
have you seen a difference on how that community, by bringing those two groups of creators together,
Mhm.
have you seen a difference on how the community adopts sustainability or clean energy? Is that something that you have a feel for, or is it outside of your purview?
I think what I have more of a feel for is say we have one of our partners is Glass Half Full. Glass Half Full, they collect bottles and they recycle them into sand. Okay. Now we have some of our founders are using the sand in their creations too, which is pretty cool. Some of the artists are actually doing partnerships with the founders to do moldings and creations with their material. So we take a
Mm.
biocrete, and when we take that biocrete, instead of just shift it into a concrete block, we may shape it into something that can be in a wildlife reserve because it's going to be friendly to the ecosystem as well. So when you're thinking about those collaborations, so Glass Half Full, because they are recycling glass and making it into sand, these guys are actually helping us with something called bar wars, right?
Mhm.
Now we got all of our local bars competing to collect glass to give it to Glass Half, or to get a subscription, get the Glass Half Full. They turn it into sand, and the founders use the sand. So it's just linking all these different pieces of the puzzle that I think that's making it work as well.
That is that is a great example of circularity, where you're
Yes, that's it. That is very much, it's very much circular because the further we can go back, so now you want to take this thing back to money, right?
Mhm.
If we can get this now connected back to our hospitality industry, that's tourism.
Yeah,
And New Orleans has a huge tourism market, right? And so
correct.
maybe we can start funding and supporting initiatives that we have an ecotourism concept that will help us from a sustainability perspective. But it will also help to educate the folks that come and visit us because we love visitors. It was also
Yeah.
educate the folks that come and visit us on how they can help us take care of the place that they love to visit.
Yes, and there's communities around the world that have embraced ecotourism, and that will be fantastic. And I'm
Mhm.
curious on that note, we touched a little bit on the Super Bowl, and we were talking about it before we started recording.
Yeah.
Is there any? We're having the Super Bowl in this coming weekend, and
Mhm.
go Eagles! So um, don't worry, friends here in New England. But the Eagles have a special spot
I
in
was
our
about to
heart.
say, I love the Eagles. Well, I love the Eagles for a long time. And it goes back to Jerome Brown and Randy White. When I was playing video games, I think it was the 1991 Philadelphia Eagles was one of the most vicious teams on that. I think it was Sega at the time. It was great. It was Madden. It was early forms of Madden. So I played with those guys. I loved them. And then we came through that whole Andy Reid area, so I enjoyed that. But now I'm enjoying watching Jalen Hurts and that whole squad do what they do.
Yes, and it is amazing what they can do. I My love for the Eagles, it comes from through my husband. He grew up close to
Hmm.
Philly, and I just love watching the game. I love watching the footwork that
Hmm.
Saquon Barkley has. Like, it's amazing to see them how they
Hmm.
perform, and in a way, like I was a competitive athlete myself growing up,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
years ago. But so I appreciate it's to me it's like art. What they
Hmm.
are doing, they make it look simple, but it's not. And I many times draw a parallel with business and what the folks are trying to do here in the clean energy space, where when we see the final product, it looks simple and you're like, oh, this is great. Of course, it looks
Hmm.
simple because they already went through this whole process of
Hmm.
working through the kinks, like developing that performance so we can
Hmm.
see the final product and we
Hmm.
can enjoy the final product. So
Yeah.
I love it. But going back to clean energy and sustainability. So
Well, and can I just drop a quick comment on that?
yeah.
I think that's a really very good analogy because our founders and our folks who are working in that space, they are the athletes who are working on their craft to try to get to that peak potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, because we don't see them putting in the work, and we have the expectation on Sunday for the athlete, or just the expectation when they show up, they have to be, X, Y, and Z, not understanding all the practice in the iterations of their project and things that they've gone through. So, I encourage everyone, if you meet a founder, just tell them, man, congratulations, encourage them to keep going. Those are our dreamers. We need them, just like we need our athletes.
Yes, totally
Mhm.
agree. And on that note, have you seen any push to have the Super Bowl, or even the events happening more sustainable in New Orleans, as people you get an influx of people this coming weekend?
Well, when you're talking about the ecotourism perspective, I'm not going to tell you that there's a process in place from an ecotourism perspective. Like this is a wish list goal type concept for me. But I
Hmm.
think as a city, we have some new leadership in the Office of Sustainability. And so I think that there are projects and different things that are going on. That's why I'm super excited about being a part of Bar Wars. So Bar Wars is happening right now, and that's our sustainability initiative, right? How can we get as much glass out of our waste system from now until Mardi Gras? Right? So encouraging everybody to recycle their glass and trying to decrease the weight and the poundage on that. Now, there are other initiatives that are also taking place. There, we have like Greenworks team. They're recycle that. there are a ton of other people who are doing small things. I think that what would be really cool is the moment that we all get on the same page with our initiatives. So I think that's going to be really cool. But we do have an office that's constantly working on sustainability projects. I'm blessed to be attached to the office of Greater New Orleans Inc., which is the organization that we work with. So all of our sustainability efforts really are supported by them. So I'm super excited about that. So I think that the really bright spot in all of this is that there are people who are not only they're doing actions in that sustainability place. I mean, I think it's early for us. I mean, maybe late, but I think it's early for us. But we're doing work in that sustainability spot, and we got people who are, I say, shot callers, or people who are in the right position that see the work, appreciate the work, and I think it's going to have an opportunity to gain great traction.
And as you were mentioning, we're might be late, but we're early. And
Mhm.
as I tell folks, it's never too late. Today is
Yes,
the best time to get started,
yes,
regardless. So
yeah, yeah,
thank
yeah, and
you.
I think that's the other part too now. Making it about doing something together right now, right? I think
Mhm.
that and that's how we kind of works it. That's how we kind of work it here in New Orleans is that we can do something together that even if you don't have to be super passionate about it, but if you come and hang out with me and we have a beer together, we're going to recycle that bottle. So we did something together. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like keeping it as simple and easy as we possibly can, but making sure that we use our concept around community to where every action, regardless of how small, it is intentional.
correct. And
Mhm,
that reminds me of an event. It's here at my kids' school, but it
mhm,
is very similar. Where we had an event for they create a spaghetti supper every year, and
mhm.
we bring the school is transformed into a restaurant. So
Oh, nice.
it,
Yeah.
and the sixth graders actually serve the food to folks, and
Hmm.
it's a full experience. And every year you have dishes. You have your regular plates, which are washed in the dishwasher, but you also have water bottles. And this year I was working with them, and I was like, why are we having still plastic water bottles? Can we start a new movement? And this year we started saying, bring your own cup and we will serve you the water here. And not today, this year, this past year was the first year. But to your point, we started a movement. We start with one bottle. In our case,
Hmm.
we saved 180 water bottles we did not use. So those are 180 less that we have in the
Yes.
in the recycling system, and probably on the in somewhere polluted in the world. But so it's about starting those small steps, thinking about it, being intentional, and how you're integrating it into even having a beer with a friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And we know
and
how to do that down here too. So, we know how to party. So,
exactly. So it's
hmm
about integrating that into
hmm
everything you do, and there's many examples of that. So and we are talking a lot about community here, and
hmm
so we how do you what would you recommend for founders or leaders that are trying to build an ecosystem, or maybe they have an ecosystem but they want to strengthen that bond with the community? How
hmm
is there any recommendations that you have, anything that has worked or maybe not worked, because we can learn from that too.
My theory is that as long as the components are there, you just have to have somebody who's willing to go and visit everybody. So
Mm,
it's one of those things where like you have to make a list of all your resources in your city. So like you want to know who is your economic development piece in that city, chamber of commerce in that city. You're looking for all those major business hubs, and then your tech guys are going to be in probably a little different space. You want to find out what the tech guys are doing. You want to find out what any of your local entrepreneurs are doing. So after you make that list of where those spaces, where all those people are, chances are they're not interacting. More than likely, they're all siloed because everybody's comfortable in their own space. So you want to go and visit each one. When you go visit each one, you want to find something out about that program that can help that group as a whole, right? So you're going to go visit the Chamber of Commerce. You want to find out something about how they're going to support small business or how they're supporting startups. That becomes part of your arsenal. And then you work your way around to every single group, picking up a resource from each and every one of them. And by the time you come back, you're going to have business cards and you're going to have a list of resources, right? Now, the next time you go back around, this is your excuse. You want to go around and find out, hey man, what's your greatest pain point? You can do it both in one meeting. Me personally, I like to have an excuse to come back and see you, come hang out at your event and do something, right? And most people, it's difficult to drum up a conversation. So the next time you go back, you go, I'm just going to focus on not trying to get, just like I focused on what resource they have and giving that person a chance to tediously explain to me what that resource is about. I'm going to go back and have that same person explain to me what are some of the challenges that they're having and how can I help them. Chances are I probably already have the resources because I talk to everybody in the ecosystem.
That is a wonderful strategy because you already built. You have your toolbox in a way ready, and you
Yeah,
can start making those connections right there and then.
yeah. And then what you'll find out when you start visiting and sharing information about other people's programs and what they're doing, then all of a sudden they'll start crossing paths and they will feel like, everybody's on the same page, man. Everybody will feel good about what everybody's doing. There's no need to stay siloed. We're kind of on the same thing. And after you build that type of momentum, try to have an event where you can bring, individuals from all of those groups together in one space.
And on that note of the events, if
Mhm,
you're bringing if it having several partners come in and have an event together,
mhm,
how do you align those? Everyone has, in a way, their own agenda, but at the end of the day, we all have a common agenda to
mhm.
clean this world. But how do you align their immediate objectives and make sure that the participants also have a tangible outcome that they see value in coming to this event?
I think, I mean, we rally around energy. So I know the theme of our state right now is really driven by energy. So
Hmm.
I know how that should look. It really depends on what your community is, where your community is, what is it locked into? And it's going to be different for everybody. Like your the way you find out what's important from an economic development perspective is you got to reach out to your EDO. You got to start talking to your chamber of commerce. You got to figure out what direction that city is going, what's important to it. Are there any sustainability projects that are happening in the city that you should know about? What nonprofit sustainability projects are happening, and what nonprofit organizations are doing sustainability projects in your city? Um, it just takes being really an investigator, come on that front end, and now. So let's take this scenario and go all the way through it. So we have our nonprofits who are doing something with sustainability, and then we have what are the city initiatives that are happening with sustainability, right? Now I got to go back to the city procurement office. I need to learn the city's procurement process because when I go talk to my small business owners, I need to tell them, hey, there's some opportunities that are coming up. This is what the procurement process is going to be like. Or tell them that, let those guys set up an opportunity to hear from the procurement office. Because now all of a sudden it may be part of their initiative to get more outreach from the office. So generally what happens is if there's a sweet spot in there, that's going to be a need for that business owner to learn something. There'll be a need for that procurement officer, some maybe to get information out. So when you start looking at them and talking to folks, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out how to align it. It's a lot of different ways to align it. You gotta be curious. Gotta be curious.
Definitely. The curiosity is what's going to spark
Hmm.
ways of solving the problem, or ways of collaborating, and making things a win-win situation.
Yes. Yes.
And I have found that sometimes founders get opportunities.
Hmm.
However, they are not fully ready to take advantage, or their processes, the way they operate, is it's still a bit let's call it static. They're not
Hmm.
as flexible or agile as they would like to. Have you encountered that, or have you encountered any
Yeah.
scenarios?
Yeah. I mean, you find people who are in love with their idea. So
Hmm.
they love their idea. They put a lot into it, and sometimes it is hard. And they're one man game. They're a one man team too. So that's a challenge. So sometimes it's hard for them to be able to take all things into consideration. Let's say it that way, right? The best way to find out if that person has an idea or a hobby is to find out to what level was the customer discovery done,
Mm.
right? So if you have a iCore team up there, or if you have people who do any type of incubating, um, you want to make sure that any founder that you're working with has gone through a thorough customer discovery process, because that's how you're going to find out what the potential of the project is,
Correct.
right? Like somebody's got to pay for
Yeah.
it. So yeah.
And sometimes they need to, they have done that customer discovery, and they just need to learn to adjust slightly, continue on their path, but with slight
Mm,
adjustments, so they can take advantage of those procurement opportunities, as you mentioned before.
yes. So if you are, and this was me like a long time ago, I spent some time in restaurants, right?
Hmm.
And you can want to open a high end, you can want to open a high end restaurant in a spot that needs to be a pizza joint. You can open a high end restaurant, but what you got to understand is the work to get that high end restaurant going is going to be ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Because that customer base really wants a pizza joint, right? Casual, come in, grab, pick it up. So I think if, if they've done the customer discovery, that's going to be your quickest, and it's solid, right? Then you're going to be able to see how you're going to monetize it. And if monetizing the project is not the motivation, and it's not the motivation for a lot of founders, I'll be completely honest
Mhm.
with you. For a lot of
Yes.
founders, they want to do good. It's not about how they're going to monetize their project, right? So that's the only thing I would say, man. Like if it's customer discovery has to be thorough. This is going to give you an idea of how well it's going to be monetized. And at that particular point in time, you either know if you've got somebody who's trying to be business owner, or really scale to a unicorn, or whatever level they want to scale it to. That's a pathway, but they have to go through that process. Other than that, they have a great idea, and you're going to hear great ideas all the time, and sometimes they're not going to do anything with it. So
Yes. And sometimes the is not the right time. It might
yeah.
just, it maybe society or the world is just not ready for that idea, or
Mhm.
it's one that will take some time to develop and be adopted. So
Right. And this the other part too. Like I'm a 100%. I'm a cheerleader. Like once a founder says, "Hey, I want to work with you," I am 100% all in, but I'm all in on being very real and honest with them, right?
Hmm.
Because they're gonna have to be a little tenacious. They're gonna have to be tough. People might gonna tell them no. So um, once they get that part and realize that there's a way to monetize this, smo- they'll get excited. We can get excited. Yeah, we'll get excited.
Yes, it is very exciting, but it is a marathon or more
It is
of a,
American.
it's like an ultra, not even a
Hmm.
marathon. Um,
Yeah,
so you need to be building and keeping that excitement through milestones and
yes.
progressing. Because it's not a entrepreneurship is not a quick win. So
And a lot of times that requires you to put time in that's going to help it be a good win versus a quick win.
correct. Yes, that
Hmm.
I love that. Is you want a good win and not a quick win.
Yes.
Um, so, do you have any advice for entrepreneurs that are within an ecosystem, or maybe they're not, but they want to join an ecosystem? How can they take advantage of all the resources and support that usually an ecosystem like the Opportunity Hub provides them?
Well, first of all, you want to find out how organized it is, probably. As you start going to events, you want to look, you're trying to figure out if there's like we say, our startup NOLA features a ecosystem meetup. We is crystal clear on what we're doing. So it's
Hmm.
one of those things where you go, if they have one of those, that's cool. But if not, it's going to be starting a journey like we talked about, going to visit other people's stuff and just collecting as much information on resources and different things like that, right? So if you're going to go do a tech meetup, also go by your chamber of commerce. Just go have a one-on-one conversation to find out, there may be funding there for small businesses that you don't know about.
Correct.
So, you know what I'm saying? So just kind of work that angle, going back and forth, different things. And what you will find out is that you will build an ecosystem and everybody will start revolving around you have until they have started meeting and creating their own organic relationships. And then it just,
It takes a life of their own.
yeah, it takes a life of its own. It does. Because the founders will start getting opportunities by working with different VCs. They're going to start sharing that. You're going to start sharing information around incubators. It just starts to snowball. It starts to snowball. It catches momentum. It does.
That's wonderful. That momentum is what we want to keep going within this
Yes.
industry. So, because we can't stop, we need to continue getting green technologies out there, getting every organization to work in a more sustainable way, and each of us as individuals, we need to do our part on cleaning our world and keeping it in better shape. So,
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I think that regardless of what's going on, man, I think that lean into the hope side because usually when any industry is disrupted, opportunity comes out of that disruption.
yes.
Okay. And so it's just being able to um, pay attention, look for it's just, hopefully it's not, this is a Bible verse, but it goes, you want to look for the good in everything, right? Like just really be honing in on the things that are going to take us to the next level. Okay.
Yes.
If we look for that, we're gonna find that. If we look for the other stuff, we're gonna find other stuff. But if we look for the things, ask yourself curious questions. What can do right now that's gonna be changing just my environment?
Hmm.
Um, and I think that everything else will work out.
Yes. And as you say, keeping that hope, it's
Yeah.
a really, and even though there's a saying, hope is not a strategy, We
hmm
really need to, in tumultuous times, we
hmm
need to keep that, internalize that hope. And I think the next step is also being intentional on our actions, on what we're trying to accomplish, how we work, and how we live every day. That's
Yeah.
what, and not just for the environment, especially with our fellow humans, and
Yeah.
so being kind to each other. So that's critical. So, sort of kind of wrapping up, what I would like to, if you give us an idea of what is the type of legacy that you're trying to leave in New Orleans and beyond, as yourself, and with also with the Opportunity Hub. Um,
Um, I think the legacy is, that that for myself is that I created, you know, access and also, through strategic collaborations, um,
Mhm.
created opportunity for this explosion of new energy and technology founders, diverse population of founders, just really cool, just a space where people feel accepted and can kind of push and drive their ideas and concepts. I think that being able to kind of open that up, we're already a creative, accepting community. I think being able to put that in the new energy technology space would be the legacy more so. And then just being someone who loved the city so much that he was able um, to contribute in this space, right? I
Yeah,
don't, I don't. It's hard. Sometimes when you sit with it and think about how big this is, it can become a little like you go like, okay, wait a minute. But as long as I think about myself as passing the baton, right? I just need to get this thing to where there are more doors open for the person I passed the baton to than there was when I got the baton myself. That's the legacy.
that is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And as folks, if folks wanna participate with the Opportunity Hub, is there any programs, any resources that you have available for folks in general? And also, I am located in New England. You're in New
hmm
Orleans, and we have listeners all over the world. So,
hmm
is if there are folks that wanna collaborate with you, they want to reach out, is there ways that you find useful that you could collaborate or have a conversation?
Absolutely, man. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Leroy Brown. OHUB is on LinkedIn as OHUB, OHUB. Um, and then my email address is Leroy at OHUB, OHUB dot AT. I mean, this is it's because it's such a super exciting time. I'm su However you reach out to me, if you hit me an email or something, I'm really interested to kind of see what's going on. Now, um, I'm more, to be honest with you, my resources and everything are national. So I wouldn't want your international audience to feel like, I just know that my resources, the way they're set up, are more from a national perspective. Now, if there's something that I can just from a, you know, advice perspective, I don't mind answering those questions or something like that. Or I'll look at your project and go and look at your project. I don't mind doing that either. Um, but most of the resources I have access to are going to be stateside.
Perfect, perfect.
Mhm.
And well, thank you very much, Leroy. I love this conversation. It has been very interesting, very insightful. And
Yeah.
now I have a final question that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
And would if you have up to three people to, or it could be more, that you would
hmm
want to have a conversation with, either dead or alive, who would
hmm
they be, or and why?
Hmm. Whew. Man, and it's just funny. You know, you hear people ask this question a lot, and I probably haven't taken the time to really think about that for myself. But because of my faith, I'd be crazy not to say that I wouldn't want to have that conversation with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think, and more so because I'm curious about what he was like, knowing what he knew, what he was thinking during that time frame, right? Like it's just more of, yeah, who he was, what he was connected to. I want the rawness of the early stage of that process. That's just me. Um, I think somebody else who I probably I'd be really interested in talking to is, crazy enough, Reggie White. Just from a sports perspective, very well respected. I told you I like him from that Philly team. But he was also, I just watched a documentary on him, and I watched him go through, just this process right here. And you now that I am older, it's really interesting to learn about how people handle challenges when they were at different points in his life. To go from being so beloved to take a stand in something he really believed in, and then for it somewhat to kind of backfire on him. So that'll be a great conversation. Um, and I think the person who I'm cheating with this is going to be the future version of me. And I want that future version of me, I want to have that conversation and him telling me about all the things that we did right now and how it impacted the future and how it helped folks. And just me and him, not the ego stuff, none of that. Just me and my future version sitting down having a conversation about, and him telling me, man, you really did some good things. I know you didn't know everything that you was doing. I know you didn't have it all figured out, but you really did some good things, and I really appreciate you setting us up for success. And that'll be it.
That that's fantastic. Thank you for those answers. I'm always very
Yeah,
curious to see the various answers. It's fantastic. And the future version of me, it's a great answer. I love it.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
it.
definitely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. This has been, as I said, a fantastic conversation. You gave us a lot of
Thank you.
nuggets and of insight and actions that the founders and others can take to move this
Mhm.
industry and have this movement go further. So, thank you very
Mhm.
much. And
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
it has been a pleasure. And dear listener, thank you for joining us today. And, go and make that list of everyone that you need to go and talk to and learn what their resources are and what their needs are. So you can start that ecosystem, that synergy with all your fellow founders and ecosystem and leaders like Leroy here. So thank you very
Yeah.
much.
And
And
have fun. Have fun.
yes, that is the main thing. Have fun and
Yeah,
believe in yourself because you're doing great
yeah.
work. Thank you, Leroy. Thank you, dear listener. Until next time.
Thank you, guys.